years, I am again presenting myself before this August gathering. Well, to start with, today's guest of honor, Sri Sadashiv Deshmukh Sahib, President of the Association, Mr. Kapadia, Vice President, Mr. Dinesh Tamde, other office bearers on the dais, and my dear colleagues. You have been very anxious to hear me, and that is why I feel that so much of crowd is present today to listen on the hot topic which has been recently generated called Amnesty Scheme 2019. Coming to the introduction which my nephew gave, we all know the relations between Kaka and Putanya. The moment you have laughed, I understand that you are pointing out to Kaka Putanya pair. But then there, Kaka is prevailing on nephew. Here, nephew is prevailing on Kaka. It's vice versa. Anyway, that is why he has pointed out that when he told me that, Kaka, you will have to give lecture on amnesty scheme, introduce that amnesty scheme to our members, I could not say no to him. I have tried my best to go through the scheme, though the recent trade circular was issued on 8th of March and given to us on website day before yesterday. I have tried my best to look into all those aspects, and having gone through, I'll now come straight to the subject. See, I have been called upon to introduce this amnesty scheme. Now, why an ordinance number 5 of 2019 dated 6th of March 2019 was promulgated is the question. We all know that the Honorable Finance Minister in his budget speech dated 27th of February 2019 had made an announcement of amnesty for settlement of arrears of tax, interest, penalty or late fee, and give effect to this ordinance has been promulgated on 6th of March 2019. Of course, both the houses are not in session, therefore ordinance was the only option open with the state government. Now the reasons for amnesty scheme. The amnesty scheme has been introduced especially on the background that goods and service tax has been introduced from 1st of July 2017. There are a lot of enactments which were subsumed within GST, or some of the acts were repealed. And looking into the workload which the department has to undergo, diversify their staff to the smooth sailing of the GST, and equally there are number of cases which are pending, having crores of rupees worth of revenue locked up. The assessments which even pertained under the Bombay Sales Tax Act, VAT Act, any other acts like Right to Use Act, Works Contract Act, etc. Those appeals are still pending. Maybe some of the SACs have deposited certain tax amount by way of part payment, but then those appeals are not getting disposed of, maybe due to limitations on the part of the department that they are not able to dispose of those appeals, maybe due to certain litigations which are pending in courts by various judgments. And because of that, the government thought that we should come out with some amnesty scheme which will help reducing the pending revenue and to inculcate more revenue so far as amnesty scheme is concerned. Now, the scheme itself envisages the safeguarding of undisputed tax. So mind you, first of all, that so far as undisputed tax is concerned, you are never going to get any amnesty. I'll better refrain from commenting whether this amnesty scheme is going to be successful, unsuccessful, how much response would be there, whether there would be a great response in respect of this amnesty scheme. Because today we are not going to judge the outcome of the amnesty scheme. What we are concerned today is the amnesty scheme which has been brought, how many assessees as a tax practitioners would be able to apply for amnesty scheme and do away with the pending litigation. Then what has been introduced in the amnesty scheme is the waiver in respect of tax, interest, penalty or a late fee. Now, which are those acts under which the amnesty scheme can be opted, and those acts have been mentioned in the amnesty scheme ordinance itself, and those acts are, I'll just mention them. First, they have stated Central Sales Tax Act, the Bombay Sales of Motor Spirit Taxation Act, the Bombay Sales Tax Act, Maharashtra Purchase Tax on Sugarcane Act, the Maharashtra State Tax on Profession, Trades, Callings and Employment Act, Maharashtra State Tax on Transfer of Right to Use any goods for any purpose Act, Maharashtra Tax on Entry of Motor Vehicles into Local Areas Act 1987, the Maharashtra Tax on the Luxuries Act 1987, the Maharashtra Sales Tax on the Transfer of Property and Goods involved in the execution of works contract reenacted Act 1989, the Maharashtra Tax on Entry of Goods into the Local Areas 2002, and lastly, Act number 11 is Maharashtra Tax on Maharashtra Value Added Tax Act 2002. Now, these are all the acts in respect of which, if you wish to opt for amnesty, you can very well go in for amnesty. Now, the raider is, once you decide to opt for amnesty, the first question comes as to what would be the period for which I can opt for amnesty. Well, the periods, since they have included even the GST Act, there is no upper limit for the period. They have made two parts so far as amnesty is concerned: Annexure A and Annexure B. Annexure A speaks of periods for which you want to opt for amnesty. That period has been specified as period up to financial year 2009-2010. So 31st March 2010 is the period up to which you can opt for amnesty so far as Annexure A is concerned. And so far as Annexure B is concerned, period starting from 1st of April 2010 till 30th of June 2019. That means a day prior to introduction of GST. So up to 30th June 2019, from 2017 to 30th June 2019, you will be able to opt for amnesty. Then so far as Annexure A and the first period is concerned, what are the waiver which are declared so far as amnesty is concerned? So far as undisputed tax is concerned, as I have mentioned, there is no waiver. Once you opt for amnesty, you will have to deposit 100% of the tax which is undisputed. Insofar as disputed tax is concerned, 50% of the tax is required to be deposited, and waiver will be for 50%. So far as interest is concerned, as per Annexure A, for a period up to 2010, 31st March 2010, interest of disputed tax, 10% of interest is to be paid and 90% interest will be waived. And so far as penalty is concerned, 5% penalty is to be paid, and 95% of waiver in respect of penalty has been proposed. One has to consider even the post-assessment penalty in that case. And so far as post-assessment penalty and the late fee is concerned, they say as per annexure that so far as post-assessment penalty and late fee is concerned, 100% waiver will be granted. Now, there has been a phases which have been introduced in this scheme. Now, so far as phase 1 is concerned, the phase 1 is for period from 1st of April 19 to 30th June 2019. That is for 3 months it will be valid. And in first phase, if you deposit, so far as period prior to 2010 is concerned, you will have to deposit a percentage of the disputed tax and the interest and penalty which I have mentioned. The second phase will start from 1st of July to 31st of July 2019. That is for a period of 1 month only. There, if you are opting for payment of tax under amnesty, the waiver will be, so far as undisputed tax is concerned, 100% undisputed tax is to be paid. So far as disputed tax is concerned, instead of 50%, you deposit 60% of the tax, and waiver will be for 40%. So far as interest is concerned, for a period prior to, again, I am highlighting the period because whatever I am reading so far as annexure A is concerned is applicable only for the period up to 31st March 2010. And the percent is applicable only up to 31st March 2010 for any assessments pending, statutory orders passed, whatever appeals pending. This deadline is 31st March 2010 period up to 31st March 2010. That one has to keep in mind. So in respect of interest for the second phase, interest will have to be paid instead of 10%, 20% interest will have to be paid. And waiver will be for 80%. So as penalty is concerned, instead of 5% in first phase, 10% of the penalty is required to be paid, and there will be 90% of the waiver so far as penalty is concerned. Again, post-assessment penalty and late fee is concerned, when in respect of second phase, there is 100% waiver which is provided. Coming to annexure B, there is period starting from 1st of April 2010 to 30th June 2017. In first phase, that is from April 19 to June 2019, again undisputed tax will have to be paid in full. So assessments starting or any dispute starting in respect of financial years 2010 onwards, if there is any undisputed tax, 100% of the undisputed tax is to be paid. So far as disputed tax is concerned, 70% of the disputed tax is required to be paid and 30% will be waived. Penalty, so far as interest is concerned, 20% interest will have to be paid in relation to disputed tax and 80% waiver will be allowed. Penalty, 10% is to be paid and 90% of the penalty will be waived. And so far as penalty and late fee is concerned, 100% waiver has been provided. Whereas second phase, for the period starting from 1st of April 2010 is concerned, second phase we have seen that it starts from 1st of July 2019 to 31st July 2019. There also undisputed tax will have to be paid in full, and if you are opting for that second phase, then instead of making payment of 70% of the disputed tax, pay 80% of the disputed tax and avail 20% waiver. In case of interest, 30% of interest will have to be deposited and avail 70% waiver in interest. Penalty, 20% of the penalty and avail 80% of waiver. Now, this is overall what we understood from the schemes. Now, when I have referred to all these disputed, undisputed, what is waiver, who can be the applicant, now from here onwards, I will be dealing with certain definitions also. Now, they are not new for these amnesty schemes. There have been Yes. Yes.
Taxes returned are under 704 not paid. In that case, whether there is a waiver of interest.
I am coming to that. I'm coming to that. I'm coming to that. Okay. I will not. So long as you are sitting here, I'll go on talking. Don't worry. There is no upper limit, I suppose. Well, if you really wish that you should grasp this amnesty scheme and how to apply, then there should not be any time limit so far as introduction of amnesty scheme is. Otherwise, I would have just left to you that just go through an ordinance, go through trade circular, go through the order which has been issued by the commissioner, and amnesty scheme you will be able to understand. But then what they have stated that I was coming to, we are not coming, not new to all these amnesty schemes. We have seen amnesty schemes earlier also. And the difficulties which we faced in adopting those amnesty schemes, filling up those forms, going to the authorities, running from pillar to post, where to give application. Even in respect of 2016 amnesty, the department had tried to introduce online application forms, etc. It was partly successful, partly unsuccessful. But then, so far as this particular amnesty scheme is concerned, I personally feel that whatever difficulties we faced in the 2016 amnesty, the government has really come out with solutions because the acts which were introduced were cryptic, not defining any expressions which were used in the amnesty scheme. And here in this particular ordinance, whatever expressions they have used, they have defined those expressions. And they have taken all the care to find out and explain to you what would be the requisite amount, what would be the specified period, what would be the disputed amount, what would be the undisputed amount, how you make an application, whether the application forms to whom it is to be given, what will happen to the waiver if the appeals are pending, what will happen to the withdrawal of those appeals, right up to the High Court. I have only one question. That means even the appeals or the references which are pending before High Court, the SSC will be able to withdraw them so as to opt for amnesty, no doubt about that. But then the procedural aspect is, or the question which from my side would be, if the reference is filed on behalf of the department, then whether if I make an application to the department, here is the pending reference which the department has filed to the High Court that is pending, whether the department will be able to withdraw that reference and allow me to opt for that amnesty, that question has not been answered. And as I was saying that we are not accustomed to, we are not new to this amnesty scheme. माझं आजचं काम कसं आहे, सॉरी, आपण पेपरमध्ये शब्दकोडी सोडवतो, रोज पेपर येतो, शब्दकोडी सोडवायला घेतो. शब्दकोडी सोडवता सोडवता काही शब्द अडतात, आपल्याला सुचत नाही, आपण सोडून देतो. आपण कसली वाट बघतो, दुसऱ्या दिवशीचा पेपर येईल, त्याच्यात काहीतरी उत्तरं सापडतील आपल्याला, त्यांनी दिलेली असतील ती. अमनेस्टीचं तसंच आहे. अमनेस्टी इंट्रोड्यूस केलेली आहे, काही क्वेश्चन्स अजून अनसॉल्व्ड आहेत, त्याच्यामुळे मग कमिशनरने एक ट्रेड सर्क्युलर इश्यू केलं आणि त्या ट्रेड सर्क्युलरच्या बेसिसवरती मग आता आपण इंटरप्रिट करायचं आहे की ह्या अमनेस्टी मध्ये नक्की त्यांनी काय म्हटलेलं आहे, त्यांना काय म्हणायचं आहे. तर दिस इज व्हॉट we move on with the trade circular number 90 also, which has been introduced on 8th of March 2019. Now I'll come to the amnesty scheme itself. Amnesty scheme contains 20 sections. Ordinance contains 20 sections. As usual, the first section deals with short title and commencement, and that short title reads Maharashtra settlement of arrears of tax interest penalty or late fee ordinance 2019. Then in section 2 they have mentioned certain definitions which I'll come to it little later on. Section 3 deals with designated authorities. Now, who are those designated authorities who will be dealing under this amnesty scheme? Section 4 deals with duration of phase. That means the one which I have now introduced to you, that what are those phases as per Annexure A, Annexure B, first phase, second phase, that I have told you. So Section 4 contains duration of phases. Section 5 deals with adjustment of any payment made under the relevant act and settlement of arrears of tax, interest, penalty or late fee if any. So this section deals with the payment, how the payment made under amnesty will be adjusted. Now we all are aware that under the VAT Act, let me comment on this aspect itself right away. Maharashtra Act section 14 provides that any payment made after the order is passed, that payment is to be first adjusted
May I request anyone who doesn't have space, please come here.
Come here.
Please come here in the aisle. Please stand here. Let's have a little space for people at the back also.
I suppose people are waiting outside also.
With the session there. You may have a seat if you want. There is space here. Please come here, accommodate yourselves with the aisle. Okay, if everyone has settled, we'll continue with the session. Let's try to not disturb all the other people as well as the speaker during the session. That is why we'll hold for 2 minutes. Please settle down, we'll start again.
That is why we were insisting to the commissioner as well as the government that please provide us bigger space. This association is not a small association. And if you really want that the revenue from this amnesty scheme should come, then provide us a bigger space. Let the commissioner also come. And if each one of the practitioners files at least 10 application forms, there would be a rampant revenue which would be collected by your amnesty.
Sir, let me add one thing. On the contrary, they have issued us a recovery notice of 1 crore 18 lakh.
Then down with them, I'll say. Then down with them, I'll say. I was on the adjustment of payments made under the relevant act and the settlement of arrears in dispute. I will refer to it as Amnesty Scheme 2019. As we are all aware that whatever payment of tax we make after the order was passed, then that payment of tax was first to be adjusted against the penalty, late fee, penalty, then towards interest, then towards the tax. Exactly converse what we had experienced under the Bombay Sales Tax Act. VAT Act was introduced, and in VAT Act section 40 was introduced, and it specifically stated that whatever payment you make, that payment will be adjusted first towards penalty, then towards interest, and remaining towards the tax. Now, if that is the situation, we had faced the difficulty in 2016 amnesty also. That when a person has already deposited certain tax in appeal, and I used to go with application form, the officer used to say, nothing doing, you have already deposited that tax, I am going to first adjust it in so far as amnesty is concerned towards the penalty, then towards interest. Then a clarification had to be brought from the commissioner. And the commissioner very well clarified that yes, the officer's view is correct, but then now we come out and instruct the officers that whatever payment is made in appeal by a part payment, that payment will first be adjusted towards tax. Now, this particular difficulty they have overcome. They have introduced section 5 in the ordinance itself, and now the ordinance says that even if you have made any payment in appeal, after the order of assessment is passed, and if you are willing to opt for amnesty, then that payment will be first adjusted towards tax, then towards interest, and then towards penalty or late fee. This is a welcome provision, I will say, no doubt about that. Then section 6 speaks of eligibility for settlement. Now, who is eligible for opting for amnesty? Section 8 speaks of withdrawal of appeal. Section 9 deals with powers of the commissioner to notify transactions that may constitute issue. Now, commissioner has already issued a order, notification dated 7th March 2019 declaring certain issues that may form part as disputed amount of tax. We'll come to those issues little later on. Then section 10 is determination of requisite amount and the extent of wear. How do you determine the requisite amount so far as amnesty scheme is concerned, and what would be the extent of waiver? That I have already explained it to so far as annexure A and annexure B is concerned. Then section 11 is verification and correctness of and completeness of the application. So once the application is filed for the purpose of amnesty, the assessing authorities or the designated authorities will verify that application, correctness of that, and determine that whether the application is in order. Then so far as section 12 is concerned, settlement of arrears and passing of orders of settlement. So naturally, once application is filed, it has to be followed by passing of the order. 13 says that if you are aggrieved by the order, appeal has been provided against that settlement order also, or rejection order. Then section 14 deals with powers of authorities, that what authority, whether he will be able to reject your application, within under which powers he will, pointing out which reasons he will reject that application. That has been dealt with in section 14. Section 15 deals with bar on reopening of certain cases. That means once you have opted for amnesty, whether there is any bar on reopening of the settled cases. Section 16 deals with revocation of order of settlement. Suppose order has been passed, nothing has been done, whether the commissioner has power to revoke the settlement order. They say yes, commissioner has power to revoke the order also. Section 17 deals with review. If any review is to be made, yes, they will pass review order also in respect of settlement amnesty order. Section 18 deals with no refund under ordinance. Obvious, amnesty scheme is not being introduced just to disburse the refunds, so there would not be any refunds. Don't expect any refunds. Then section 19 deals with power of the commissioner under ordinance. What power the commissioners can opt under section 19, the one which I have already mentioned here, that one order has been issued and the commissioner has already order dated 7th of March 2019 within the powers of the 19.2, the commissioner has already issued certain forms which are available on website, I suppose. I haven't checked, but then those forms pertain to earlier period, but then in the trade circular, right? In the trade circular, which is there on number 90 of 2019, those forms are available in PDF. You can very well look into those forms also. Now, this is what the overall sections which are provided in the amnesty scheme. Coming to certain important definitions which have been provided now. Yes. Now in section 2 of the ordinance, they have defined what is arrears of tax. Now, arrears of tax, interest, penalty or late fee in relation to any specified period which is defined as any period ending on or before 30th June 2017, maybe into Annexure A and Annexure B up to 2010 and later on after 2010. Then what they have defined that arrears of tax, interest, penalty or late fee payable by SAC as per any statutory order under the relevant act will be the amount which will be considered as arrears of tax, interest and penalty, limited to the definition of arrears of tax, interest and penalty or late fee. They say these are the things 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 they have mentioned. Those 5 things I am telling you that one, they have stated that arrears of tax, interest, penalty or late fee payable by SAC as per any statutory order under the relevant act. So if there is any assessment order passed against you by which any amount is payable, then as per trade circular para 3.8.2, you can very well consider this amount as arrears of tax. Then second, they have stated what would be the arrears of tax. Arrears of tax, interest, penalty or late fee admitted in return or revised return under the relevant act which has not been paid either wholly or partly will be considered as arrears of tax, interest, penalty or late fee. 3. Arrears of tax, interest, penalty or late fee determined and recommended to be payable by the auditor and accepted by the SAC. So it's not only to be mentioned by the auditor or recommended by the auditor in the audit report, but it has to be also accepted by the SAC. We all know there is a letter of submission attached to the audit report which is filed under section 61. There they have provided the column. In the calculation, I have seen many audit reports, most of the chartered accountants, they don't mention even the interest calculation. Suppose in respect of C forms which are pending, which are reported in Annexure I, there is a liability towards tax, differential tax liability. That differential tax liability automatically gets reflected once you validate that particular Annexure I, it gets reflected in part 1. And in part 1, again, you have to calculate that this is the amount which is recommended by the chartered accountant be paid by the SAC. Not only that amount, the interest column is invariably kept blank. The auditor is supposed to calculate the interest also, and that once you put that particular interest amount in the particular column, in letter of submission, it will automatically appear. And here they say as per return, as per audit, and subsequent column, they say whether accepted or not accepted. If accepted, how much is accepted, how much is not accepted. So, in particularly with reference to this aspect, whereas audit reports are concerned, they have specifically stated that arrears of tax, interest, penalty or late fee determined and recommended to be payable by the auditor and accepted by SAC. So if the SAC has accepted that amount, that will also be considered as arrears of tax. Then 4, arrears of tax, interest, penalty or late fee in respect of which a notice has been issued in relation to any proceedings under the relevant act. Suppose there is only a notice which has been issued by, we are all aware as a practitioner, the notice invariably issued 603 and 604, where they calculate that this much amount has been mentioned by your auditor towards tax, this is towards disallowance of ITC, this is towards interest, and this is what we propose to impose penalty. Now, if suppose in response to that particular notice, if you have received that particular notice, but still you have not complied with that notice, that amount also will be considered as arrears of tax, interest, penalty, or late fee. Fifth one, arrears of tax, interest, penalty, or late fee determined by SAC on self-assessment basis where no notice has been issued. So, what we gather from this clause 5 is that even in respect of any assessment period, if there is no assessment, no statutory order, no notice issued, no recommendations by auditors, because in every case there cannot be an audit report. SAC having turnover below 80 lakhs, 1 crore, you may not file any audit report. Also, in respect of such SACs also, they say you self-assess yourself and then calculate and treat that particular amount as arrears of tax, so far as definition of arrears of tax, interest, penalty, and late fee is concerned. Now, coming to another important definition is, they say who is the applicant. And there they say applicant means a person who is liable to pay arrears of tax, interest, penalty. Now, the very word that applicant means a person, the first doubt which I had in my mind, what about the person who is not registered or an unregistered dealer? That unregistered dealer also will be covered so far as this amnesty is concerned. Then they have defined the commissioner, they have defined a designated authority. Of course, definition of commissioner, GST commissioner is to be appointed so far as this administration of ordinance is concerned, and accepting the forms and modalities he has to give so far as introduction of forms, etc. Therefore, they have defined who is the commissioner. Then they have defined designated authority. That means the authorities to whom the applications are to be submitted. If they are to be submitted personally, to whom. If they are to be submitted online, the question doesn't arise. But then in most of the cases, the applications will have to be submitted personally because they require certain documents also attached along with the application. In earlier scheme, 2016, I recollect that most of the officers were insisting on attaching along with the application form the requisite order against which you are opting for amnesty, by citing reason that I don't have any papers with me, though I am a designated authority, though I am a nodal officer, there are no papers available with me. So you kindly provide me a complete set of calculation along with the order, that if there is an assessment order, you attach assessment order. If the amount is reduced as per rectification order, you attach rectification order. If you had filed appeal and there was an order passed in appeal, you give us the order passed in appeal. If you have paid the tax in appeal, you attach the challan also along with that. All those aspects were required by the assessing authority along with the application, and then he will say, okay, now I will verify that. You give me 15 days time. I look into whether the application is correct or not, and then revert back to you. That is what the same experience will have to be gone through at present in the present amnesty scheme as well. Then they have important definition is disputed tax. Now this is what we want to know. What is the disputed tax? We up to now we have only understood what is arrears of tax, interest, penalty, and late fees concerned. We want to know what is disputed tax. They say disputed tax means tax other than undisputed tax. It's the shortest definition I have seen. So for that purpose, we have to go to the definition of undisputed tax. I'll go to that undisputed tax definition right away so that it will be easier for us to understand. It has been defined in section 2Q of the ordinance. They say undisputed tax means the tax collected separately under the relevant act. Done. If you have collected the tax, shown that tax collection in your books of accounts, shown that tax collection in your returns, the officer going ahead with that has already mentioned that tax collection in the statutory order which is passed, that tax collection amount will go as undisputed tax in respect of which you have to pay 100% of the disputed amount. 100% of the amount. Unless you deposit that undisputed tax, you will not be able to avail the amnesty scheme. So clause 1 of section 2Q defining undisputed tax means the tax is collected separately under the relevant act, or 2, the deductions allowed by the authorities in the statutory order for the taxes collected separately under the relevant act. Now, what are these deductions allowed by the authorities? Suppose a person is not collecting the taxes, being a hotelier or being a person who has been opted for amnesty, or rather, what do you call it? Composition. He doesn't collect the tax. He is prevented from collecting the taxes. But then there, on par with GST Act section Rule 46A, a deduction is provided. Rule 57, 58, those deductions, Rule 57 rather, 57 only. The deduction has been provided towards the tax element. Now, there, that particular deduction is being referred to in this clause, the deductions allowed by the authorities in the statutory order for the taxes collected separately under the relevant act. The taxes is shown payable in the return or the revised return under the relevant act. Of course, in composition, the officers don't mention that tax collection, which is inclusive of tax, separately in the order. But then they say, if the officer has mentioned separately in the assessment order, any amount by way of tax collection, that will go as undisputed. Third is the taxes shown payable in the return or the revised return under the relevant act. So, whatever returns you have filed, or irrespective of the period, or revised return you have filed, and you have stated that these taxes are payable by me, those admitted taxes shown as per return will go as undisputed tax. 4. An amount claimed by the dealer as deductions or allowed by the designated authority as per Rule 57, just now I have referred to that, Rule 57 of the value-added tax rules or similar rules made under the relevant act. Then 5, an amount forfeited under the statutory order or excess tax collection shown in the return, revised return or audit report, as the case may be, submitted under the relevant act. So, the amount which has been shown as excess collection and forfeited in the statutory order, or if your auditors mentions that you have collected certain taxes in excess and he has considered that those excess tax collection has to be deposited, that excess tax collection admitted in the return or otherwise or mentioned in the statutory order will go as undisputed tax. 6, any amount of tax, interest or late fee determined and recommended to be payable by the auditor in the audit report submitted and as per section 61 of the Value Added Tax Act and accepted by the SAC either wholly or partly. Same thing which I mentioned, that not only the auditor has to recommend that it is payable, but if it is accepted also by the SAC, supposing the auditor has mentioned including tax and interest, and we mainly face difficulties so far as those C forms are concerned. Now, if that particular amount which is additional, because that additional tax demand as per Annexure I is never collected by the SAC, he collects 2%, 4%, whatever is applicable against C form. And when the C forms are not received, they are reported in Annexure I, and then differential tax liability is calculated. So that differential tax liability, they say, if it is reflected and you have accepted that differential tax liability, then it will be considered as undisputed tax. See, I'll read again. Clause 6, I'll read. Any amount of tax, interest or late fee determined and recommended to be payable by the auditor in the audit report submitted as per section 61 of the Value Added Tax Act and accepted by the SAC either wholly or partly. So far as missing C forms are concerned, I'll carry you with the same example. SAC may accept that entire forms are not going to receive and say that I accept that liability. That amount will go as undisputed. SAC has a choice to accept partial of the amount, that in respect of out of 10 forms, 5 forms are not to be received, 5 forms I dispute. That can be done. So he is partly accepting the liability shown by the auditor. Yes. One minute. That they have clarified in the trade circular. I am coming to that. The notification which has been brought, I'll refer to this notification dated 7th March 2019. There, the commissioner under section 9(1) of the ordinance has declared certain issues which are to be considered as disputed tax. That is, and there in the very first issue, the commissioner says that the declarations, or as the case may be, the certificates such as C form, A form, H form, E1 and E2 or I, as provided under the Central Sales Tax Act 1956, and such declarations or certificates are defective, partly received or partly not received, and the additional tax liability is estimated therefore, or statutory order is passed disallowing the claim in that behalf. Now this will be considered as an issue. That is what the notification says, and therefore, irrespective of the fact whether what they have stated in the ordinance so far as clause 6 is concerned, any amount which is payable in addition to the tax collected under the Central Sales Tax Act will be considered as disputable amount. Yeah, they have also used the word defective.
There is generally whatever the call or the not received that is
correct.
Is it accepted?
It will not be considered accepted liability. It will not be considered accepted liability. That is what I am telling you. And therefore, I am placing reliance on this notification which has been issued on 7th March 2019, where they have clarified, irrespective of the fact, what they have stated, that this amount will be go as undisputed amount. They say now, in notification, they say, okay, we will permit, even if you have received certain partial C forms or the C forms are being rejected on account of defect or any other ground, that amount will be considered a disputed amount and you will be eligible to claim amnesty in respect of such amount.
So that means their declaration are not suppose after
yes.
Declaration of the
received.
Opportunities will be given to
Definitely. Now, not only received, you should be assessed also. No?
Yeah.
In respect of unassessed period, what will happen? In respect of unassessed period, you will be entitled to of your own, that if you choose to opt for unassessed period in respect of C forms not received, you will be able to opt for amnesty.
Yeah.
Considering that these particular forms are not receivable. I'll come to that.
Is that option is there?
Yes. I am coming to that. Unassessed period, I am coming to that.
And other thing, as you said,
I'll suggest one thing. Because what happens, otherwise there would not be. So whatever questions you have in mind, you ask those questions later on. Then clause number 6 of section 2Q, clause number 7 rather, tax deducted at source, and clause number 8 speaks of tax collection. Now, as we all know, there is a tax deduction provided under section 31 of the VAT Act. There is a section provided for TCS also. Now, if all those amounts are required to be considered, then they say, so far as definition of undisputed tax is concerned, they say that this will be considered as undisputed tax because you have collected those taxes and you are supposed to pay them. Therefore, from clause 1 to clause 8, all those mentioned in from clause 1 to clause 8 will go as undisputed tax. Rest, everything they say will go as disputed tax. Okay, I'll come to another important definition so far as requisite amount is concerned. We have considered what is requisite amount. Requisite amount means the amount required to be paid during the first phase or as the case may be the second phase under this ordinance and shall be aggregate of the following amounts paid during the said phase under this ordinance towards undisputed amount of tax and the amount of disputed tax, interest, penalty, late fee, etc. So what is requisite amount? Requisite amount will be considered only when you make the payment of that requisite amount during the phase, first phase or second phase. That is after 1st of April 2019 and prior to 31st July 2019. That amount which is paid during this particular time will be considered as requisite amount, which will be considered for the purpose of amnesty, of course, provided you are opting for amnesty. So far as this requisite amount is concerned, I'll go back to the trade circular now and deal with that. They have in the trade circular number 90 of 2019 dated 8 March 2019, they have considered salient features in para 3 of the circular. Salient features of the settlement ordinance and its procedural aspects are explained below. Para 3.1 says that applicability of settlement of ordinance, which are those acts, and the particular item which I would like to highlight from that trade circular is para 3.9, 3.1.5. They say in respect of the late fee. Now, I personally feel that the period which they have mentioned here, considering the fact that they are going to consider the orders which are passed only up to 15th of July 2019 for the purpose of amnesty, why they have mentioned in clause 5 the period up to 31st of July 2019 so far as complete waiver of late fee. There they say the complete waiver of late fee shall be available in respect of the returns for the period ending on or before 30th June 2017 and which are filed during the 1st April 2019 and 31st July 2019. Now, if we look at para 16, or rather page 16 of the trade circular, there they have mentioned in para 3.9 that clause number 7, they say, in other words, the settlement of arrears shall not be available in respect of the returns or the revised returns that are filed after 15th July 2019. So the returns or revised returns which are filed after 15th July 2019, except the returns that are filed during the period from 1st April 2019 to 31st July 2019, the late fee waiver in respect of the returns for the period ending on or before 30th June, if are filed during the aforesaid period, shall be available for the settlement determined as per section 10, laid with annexure A and B. So, in so far as late fee is concerned, on page 16, clause 7, the commissioner has clarified that the returns which are filed only up to the period 15 July 2019 would be considered for the purpose of waiver of late fee. Then, so far as time for submission of application, we have already dealt with that application has to be filed for first page before 30th June, for second page before 31st of July. Question had come, what will happen if the application is amount of tax is paid in first phase, say as on 30th of June, but no application has been filed, or the application is being filed in second phase. There the commissioner has considered and clarified that you will be allowed, your application will not be rejected, but your amnesty scheme or application will be considered as having filed in the second phase, and accordingly the calculations will be done, difference will be calculated, it will be intimated to you, and you have to make payment as per that order. But application stands. There is no such provision if in second phase the tax is paid before 31st of July, but the application is being filed after 1st of July, August, the SAC will lose his amnesty. So make it a point that not only the payment of tax, but the applications also, as per the phases, has to be filed before 30th of June and before 31st of July. Otherwise, you will lose your amnesty. Then they have again considered what is arrears of tax, interest, penalty in the circular, the benefits available under the amnesty scheme. In para 3.4, they have stated that it may be noted that in the ordinance there is no provision which provides any relief or waiver in respect of undisputed tax as defined in section 2. That means again they have made it clear that insofar as undisputed tax is concerned, there is no waiver. Then they have given certain tables also on page 6 and 7. There they have reproduced that annexure A, annexure B, table 2 and table 3, which speaks of the waiver, percentage of waiver which I have mentioned to you. Now, who can take the benefit? I have clarified. They have stated that the taxpayer whose registration is continued after 1st of July 2017. That means he has migrated. I have stopped looking into GST. That's the problem. Migrated to GST, even those people will be allowed to opt for amnesty. Then the taxpayer whose registration certificate under the relevant act was valid at the time of on or before 30th June 2017. That means those whose dealers were live as on 30th July 2017, those people also will be entitled to opt for amnesty. The taxpayer whose registration certificate is cancelled at any time on or before the date of commencement of this ordinance, even those people before the commencement of this ordinance. That means even if anybody's registration certificate is cancelled before the introduction of ordinance, even those people will be able to opt for amnesty. And fourth one, which I have highlighted, the wording is the taxpayers who were never registered under the relevant act but desired to avail the benefits under the ordinance shall also be eligible to make an application and subject to the conditions may settle the arrears of tax, interest, penalty or late fee payable for the periods ending on or before 30th June 2017. Now, I fail to understand personally, because this question was put by Mr. Nakade also, who had Mr. Jadhav, I suppose. Jadhav was there. And he said that what would be the modalities? So far as URD person is concerned, I can understand tax, how he is to determine his own self-liability, opt for amnesty, then to whom the application will be made, and what would be the amount of interest under which section that interest will be calculated, what would be the amount of penalty or late fee if he is not to file any returns. Now, as regards this particular chapter, the commissioner said that we will designate certain authorities as per PIN code, and if the SAC is situated in PIN code number 1, PIN code number 2, let him go to that particular designated authority, understand what are the modalities, whether they are going to issue a temporary registration to him, whether they are going to allow him to upload his returns, whether they are going to allow him to file, pay his taxes during the amnesty scheme, and if he is paying the taxes during the amnesty scheme, qua the total taxes which he is required to pay because he has not collected, that entire amount will be considered as disputed amount, and according to the phases, he will be opting for payment of those taxes, either 60%, 70%, 80% like that. But then those modalities the commissioner has undertaken that we will designate certain authorities for that and we will communicate to you. Then forms to be used for settlement. There was one question also so far as forms are concerned. Now, boldly, presently, they have considered issuing 7 forms. Form 1 is an application for settlement of arrears of tax, interest, penalty or late fee payable as per the statutory order. So, Form 1, Roman 1, is to be used for making an application for amnesty in so far as statutory orders are passed. If you have a statutory order passed in your hand, as against which there is a demand, you will be able to make an application in Form 1. So far as Form 1A is concerned, Roman 1A is concerned, it says that the application for settlement of arrears other than the statutory orders like return, revised returns, dues, as per the recommendations of the auditor, or self-assessed dues. That means they will provide a drop-down menu in the application form 1A, whereby you have to select the act first, under which act you want to opt for amnesty. Then in the another drop-down menu, they will say whether it is on the basis of the arrears other than statutory order, like as per returns or as per the recommendations of the auditor, what you are opting for. There would be a drop-down menu available. You have to choose that menu and then make an application in Form 1A. Presently, what is to be remembered is Form 1 is for statutory orders, Form 1A is for any other orders. Then Form 2. Form 2 is application for withdrawal of appeal. They have considered a case where SAC, having received the statutory order, has preferred appeal and the appeal is pending before the appellate authority, may it be first appellate authority or second appellate authority, or even the High Court for that purpose, because against MVAT Act, in MVAT Act, the appeal has been provided to High Court. So you can very well go and make an application in Form 2, which is prescribed for withdrawal of appeal. Now, earlier also, we had faced the difficulties that officers are not sitting there to simply accept the form and give me the order. Appellate authorities, they have their own other work also. So it is not possible for the authorities to pass an order of withdrawal immediately unless he verifies your application form, because the option has been provided under the scheme that you can partly opt for withdrawal of appeal or whole withdrawal of appeal. So if somebody goes in for partial withdrawal of appeal, then in that case the officer, naturally appellate authority will say that okay, come sometime later on, I will verify your application and then pass order. But then because of non-passing of the order by the appellate authority, your amnesty scheme should not go, application should not get delayed. Therefore, what they have provided, that a mere acknowledgement for withdrawal of appeal would be sufficient proof. When you make an application in Form 2, complete that application, go to the authority, take the acknowledgement from him, duly stamped, not only signature or a date. We know the importance of stamp now. One has to put a stamp that designated authority has acknowledged it. So many people, so many practitioners have faced difficulty in relation to the C forms which we have filed on record during the VAT period. They had not taken acknowledgement. Some of the authorities only made signatures, and the matters are still going on right up to tribunal. So don't do that. Then Form 3 is prescribed for notice of defect in respect of application for settlement of arrears. So Form 3, notice of defect. Suppose your application is received, but then the officer feels that after verification, your application is not correct and complete. I would, or the requisite amount calculated by is not in consonance with the scheme or the trade circular issued. So here is a defect notice which is issued to you. That defect notice will be Form 4. Form 5 will be notice for rectification of mistake to be issued by the nodal officer. Suppose having passed the order under the amnesty scheme, if he says, rather Form 4 is the order of settlement or order of rejection. So once the authorities are satisfied the application filed by you in Form 1 or 1A is acceptable, he will pass an order in Form 4. Or if he wants to reject your application, he will have to pass an order in Form 4 only. So the application of that Form 4 is common. Either your application is accepted or they will say your application is rejected. Now, after having rejected your application or having pointed out any defect, they say that I am going to issue you a defect, rather a notice for rectification of mistake, because there was some mistake which was noticed by me after having passed that settlement order. So unless I hear you, I will not be able to rectify that order voluntarily. So here is a defect notice for you in Form 5. Then the SAC naturally has to appear, point out, and then find out whether there was any mistake or not. And the application for rectification of mistake to be submitted by the applicant. It's from both sides. If the officer points out any mistake, that having passed the order there is a mistake, he will issue Form 5. If the SAC comes across that there is mistake in the passing order, the SAC has to make an application in Form 6. Then Form 7 presently which is provided is for review. So they have kept all reservations with them that not only the rectification, not only the revision, not only the reassessment, but we keep all our rights reserved so far as the applications which have been filed under the amnesty scheme, and we will utilize all these options later on. And they say that section 17, rather from section 17 of the ordinance onwards, it speaks volumes that after the order is revoked as per section 16 of the ordinance, there is a review available to the SACs, to the department. There is a reassessment available to the department, and that they have made clear in the trade circular itself, that you don't consider that order passed under amnesty as final. If we come across anything incorrect, we will be going in for that. Now, on this particular aspect, I have read in the trade circular also that supposing there are certain matters which are where the orders has been passed and the revision proceedings are pending, or the reassessment proceedings or rectification proceedings are pending, officer has issued notice, but then he has not passed any final order. They say that you have to go to that officer, see to it that proceedings are completed, and then only you can opt for amnesty. So that they have clarified in the trade circular. Now this is an important aspect which I wanted to highlight so far as amnesty scheme is concerned. Then I had come up to benefits available, arrears of tax, interest, penalty, forms I had covered. Now what is awaited? They say, let us await one more circular from the commissioner, maybe another 2-3 more, I don't know, depending on, but then whatever circular has been issued by the commissioner speaks volume, and even the ordinance has taken care to quell all those disputes which had cropped up earlier in the earlier amnesty schemes. Then according to the commissioner, what they state in the trade circular, that accordingly the commissioner has provided that the application for settlement on account of the aforesaid arrears under the ordinance shall be submitted electronically on the MGSTD portal, that is mahavat.gov.in. The detailed procedure for submission of application forms electronically and that of other forms is being made available by separate circular. So we do expect a separate circular so far as this electronic submission of forms are concerned. Then they say this circular will also provide the documents that shall be submitted to the concerned nodal officer either physically or electronically. That means the documents which the officers are expecting, those documents also can be uploaded electronically, because those who are dealing in registration, they know if you make an application under the VAT Act, certain documents were required to be uploaded off late. When I used to go, every document was to be given, copies were given on record, and the officer used to issue registration certificate. But of late, when this registration, e-registration started, they took all those documents, including partnership deed or whatever they wanted, you upload them electronically. So maybe a facility on that part, they will provide that you all attach those documents, scan them, put them in a particular MB, and then only you will be able to apply. So that circular is awaited, of course. I have dealt with the arrears of tax, interest and late fee. Yes. Not that important. Okay, I'll deal one more aspect of it. In the trade circular, they have dealt with the aspect where notice under section 63(7) has been issued. They say that the SAC may avail the benefit under the ordinance in respect of all such proceedings where the notice for assessment is served and the amount of risk towards the tax, interest, late fee, and in case the penalty determined or proposed on the basis of the various parameters of such mismatch, unmatch or set off, unmatch of set off tax rate applied is wrong or the set-off is claimed in excess is communicated to the SAC, or the intimation is issued under section 63(7) of the said act. The one of these issue which may crop up, where the commissioner again has issued a notification. I will deal with this notification because I don't feel, because these are all subsequent, whatever has been explained is the procedural aspect which the commissioner has explained, that we can easily go through. Let me touch upon the notification which has been issued on 7th March under section by taking recourse to section 9(1), and I was to deal with the issues. They say the following transactions that shall constitute an issue for the purposes of settlement of arrears of tax, interest, penalty, or late fee levied, payable, or imposed respectively under the relevant act in respect of the specified period, namely. Now these will be considered as issues. That is what the commissioner wants to come out and say, that according to us these will be considered as issues in respect of which we will be offer amnesty. How it will be applicable, we will consider that. Clause A I had already dealt with, which speak that the declarations, or as the case may be, the certificates such as C-form etc. as provided in the Central Sales Tax Act, and such declarations or certificates are defective, partly received, partly not received, and additional tax liability is estimated therefore, or statutory order is passed disallowing the claim in that behalf. Now take an example. In appeal against the statutory order for disallowance of certain forms, say 10 number of forms, let us not consider the amount, I have preferred appeal. Now out of those 10 forms, 5 forms I was having, those forms which were disallowed as per annexure, but 5 forms I had produced. They are in my hand, or they have been produced on record, but the officer has disallowed them, either because of they were not complete, or they were defective, or there was mismatch of an amount, whatever you can take. So in respect of those 10 forms, I had preferred appeal before the first appellate authority, and I say that I am disputing this additional tax liability. They say, okay, in appeal what you can do, either you have to ask that officer that I am, so far as withdrawal is concerned, you can go in for partial withdrawal, because you are 100% sure that that officer, whatever forms are there in my hand, if I have cured the defect, those forms are to be considered by the appellate authority. So I say, sir, I am making application for withdrawal of appeal only in respect of 5 forms which are still not received by me. I accept that liability. In respect of 5 forms, let the appeal be continued. And accordingly, that officer will pass an order allowing me to opt for amnesty in respect of the forms which are definitely not going to receive, and in respect of the tax amount, I can opt for the amnesty as per the phases which are provided. Then second clause which has been provided, and this they have already clarified in trade circular number para 13 of the trade circular, page 13 of the trade circular.
Which is not
disputed it. Then clause 2, rather issue 2, I will refer to it as issues. Issue 2, the where set off as provided under the relevant act is disallowed due to, now this is the major concern in respect of VAT assessments, disallowance of input tax credit. Majority of the appeals have been filed either for defective forms or non-receipt of forms, or disallowance of ITC credit. Now that also they have considered, and all these issues referred are considered as disputed tax, where set off as provided under the relevant act is disallowed due to purchases made from non-genuine dealer, or from the dealer whose registration certificate cancelled at the time of such purchases. That is subclause 1. Subclause 2 says purchases made from the supplier, selling dealers who has not filed the return, that is non-filer commonly known as. And 3, purchases made from the supplier of goods who has opted for lump sum payment in lieu of tax, that is composition dealer under the value added tax. So 3 aspects they have considered so far as input tax credit is concerned. First, they say if you have, or if you know that your purchases are from non-genuine dealers, then in respect of those that particular ITC claim which is disallowed, you can accept that liability. Still you are disputing, but then that amount will be considered as disputed amount against which you will be allowed to opt for amnesty. That is one. Then in subclause 1, again they say that dealers whose registration certificates cancelled at the time of purchases. We do come across in the course of assessment that the officer says the person from whom you have effected purchases, his registration certificate stands cancelled. Forget about Suresh Trading Company, Supreme Court, what it as they have stated or not. But then we consider that your ITC will be disallowed. Now, if you have agitated that particular issue, they will say, okay, forget it. We will consider this cancellation of registration and disallowance on account of ITC also on par with disputed tax liability, for which we will be opting for amnesty. Second is purchases from a supplier who is non-filer. We do come across. सामने वाले ने रिटर्न ही भरा नहीं है, आपका ITC डिसअलाउ. सामने वाले रिटर्न भरा होगा, टैक्स डिपॉजिट नहीं किया, disputed. Now that particular aspect they have not considered. Non-deposit of tax by the supplier into the government treasury. That aspect in this issue they have not considered, for which we have to make a representation. Then do consider that issue also, because main plank is 48.5 VAT Act. सामने वाले ने कहा tax, though he has filed the returns, he has not deposited tax into the government treasury, either fully or partly. So what about such things? Kindly clarify that also and consider it as an issue. Then purchases made from supplier. Third is purchases from the supplier who has opted for composition naturally. Now somebody in his annexure J1 says that okay, I have supplied goods to him, this is the net amount, this is the tax amount, and inadvertently I opt for I avail the input tax rate in respect of the person who has already availed for composition scheme. Then they say okay, we will consider that amount also as disputed amount in respect of which we will be able to opt for amnesty. Then the mismatch, another grey angle, that mismatch of set off where gross purchases claimed by the buyer in annexure J2 as shown in the audit report and J1 by the supplier. That is what they have stated. So even the mismatch, ITC disallowance on account of mismatch also they have considered, and in respect of which if you are aggrieved and if you are willing to, you can opt for amnesty. Clause D, where in the opinion of the dealer, assessing authority or the appellate authority has committed an error in computation of set off or retention of set off, as the case may be, the denial of set off as provided under any rule made in this behalf under the Maharashtra Value Tax Rules 2005 for contingencies provided therein. That means again rule 52, 53, 54 of the VAT rules, if the input tax rate is getting disallowed or officer has not considered or excess considered any deduction in respect of that ITC disallowance, then you can very well, the difference amount you can very well consider it and say that it is disputed amount for me. Then where the assessing authority or the appellate authority in any other order has disallowed any deduction claimed by the appellant or has applied the wrong rate of tax in respect of any transaction. That means in wrong deduction, maybe in developer's case, rule 58 of the VAT rules, if there is wrong deduction or lesser deduction provided, then you can, in respect of that differential amount, you can go in for amnesty. Or what they say, wrong rate of application of wrong rate of tax. I have sold goods which are covered for the purpose of VAT Act 5%. Officer says no, they will attract tax at the rate of 12.5%. Passes order, I am in dispute. They say okay, very well, in respect of that wrong rate of tax also, the amount will be considered as disputed amount in respect of which you will be able to opt for amnesty. Now this is what initially they have stated as in notification from clause A to clause E. I will just check up now what things I have left and I will highlight those things. Let me cursorily go through the trade circular also, and if I have skipped any important aspect of it, I will highlight that and then close my introduction to the amnesty scheme. Yes, pro rata, of course, we know. Suppose the application is getting rejected for some count, or he says that having verified your application, I feel that the requisite amount calculated by you is incorrect. Now, simply because the requisite amount calculated is incorrect and you have deposited those tax, say, before 30th of June or 31st of July 2019, your application will not or never be rejected. That is what they have clarified. That in no case application will be rejected, but provided, of course, the application is incorrect, not being rejected on any other count that you are not covered under amnesty. So in that case, they say that your application will never be rejected. What we will do is we will give you the pro rata relief. Suppose there is a shortfall in the amount, 10,000 rupees calculated short. They will say, oh, so far so good. We will grant you pro rata relief, and additional amount, if it is payable, we will calculate and that you pay. If it is paid within the phases allowed, you will be able to avail. But if it is not informed to you or informed to you later on, then you have to satisfy yourself with the pro rata calculation of under the amnesty. There were certain expressions or there were certain doubts in the ordinance which they have promulgated. So when in first go, when I read it, I had noted down that the commissioner is supposed to explain what is this, the meaning of this particular expression. But then when I went through the trade circular, the doubt which I had in my mind so far as that particular expression was concerned, that has been squared, and they have already referred and clarified in the trade circular. They have given the examples also in the trade circular, and especially I think Sujata is there, she had some doubt so far as that entry tax amnesty to be opted under entry tax act, and she had a doubt so far as that section 10(2) is concerned. Section 10(2) speaks of applicant who is liable to pay entry tax under the tax on entry of entry act, then notwithstanding anything contained in this ordinance. And there was one subclause B was there, in respect of which she had a doubt that how to calculate that particular amnesty so far as the entry tax is concerned. They have from page 28 to I think about 5 pages they have considered so far as calculation of entry tax, how it will be calculated. From page 23 it starts to page 28 of the trade circular. They have elaborately dealt with the amnesty to be opted under the entry tax act. With examples also. So whereas pro rata, if you want to know, pro rata benefit will be granted. That has been mentioned on page 29, clause E of the trade circular. Then rest of it all, time limit to be provided and all that thing for issuing of defect memo, hearing is to be given, then notice of 15 days is to be issued. These are all procedural aspects. I will not touch upon those procedural aspects which they have already spelled out in the trade circular, very well worded, no doubt about that. That's all. With this, my lord, I have that habit, like PC Joshi. With this, I conclude the introduction to the amnesty scheme 2019. I thank the organizers, GSTPAM, the office bearers, for having called me. Rather, it was my choice that I will come after 12 years. It's almost 12 years that I am coming back on this dais. So I thank all of them, and particularly to all the audience who have gathered, who is standing here for about 1.5 hours now. I just thank them all and for having heard me patiently. Thank you very much.